We begin with the Israel-Gaza War, where there is growing condemnation of an airstrike near Rafah, which Palestinian officials say killed at least 45 people, including women and children at a refugee camp. An Israeli government spokesman says the initial findings of its investigation are that an airstrike against a Hamas compound nearby set off a fire which killed the Palestinian civilians. The Palestinian president in the occupied West Bank described the strike as a massacre and accused Israel of deliberately targeting displaced people. Egypt has also condemned the attack and called on Israel to implement the order by the International Court of Justice to halt its military offensive in Rafah. French President Emmanuel Macron says he's outraged by the Israeli strikes on Rafah, and Qatar also says it could hinder reaching a ceasefire deal. The airstrike came just hours after Hamas said it had launched a rocket attack on Tel Aviv on Sunday. Several rockets were intercepted by air defense systems, according to the Israeli military. Dan Johnson has this report. This was Israel's airstrike late last night in southern Gaza, which it says targeted senior Hamas figures with precision weapons. However, it devastated the nearby camp where thousands of Palestinians were sheltering. Israel claims it was striking legitimate targets in line with international law, but many of these people had already been uprooted multiple times throughout the conflict. Suddenly we heard the sound of a missile, Fathi says. We ran and found the street covered in smoke. We couldn't see anything. Then we found a girl and a young man who'd been blown to pieces. Women and children are among the casualties here in what they believed was a safe humanitarian zone. This morning, Israeli drones surveyed the damage as people questioned how this could happen. We heard a very loud sound and saw fire. The kids were screaming and all the rooms surrounding us were made out of metal sheets. The sound was terrifying. We set up our tents here and it has been targeted. They killed our children and burned our women and elderly in the place they claimed was safe. This is our 7th time being displaced. Earlier yesterday, Hamas reminded Israelis it remains a threat as Tel Aviv came under rocket attack for the first time in months. There are questions over Israel's military strategy and an international court ruling against it, but Israel continues the military action that it has been asked to stop. Meanwhile, Hamas is launching rockets against Israel, so both sides are disregarding the ruling of the international court. Israel says a review will examine this loss of life, but it is the Palestinians who count their dead and wonder where in Gaza they can find safety. Dan Johnson reporting. Abi Hyman, a spokesman for the Israeli government, explained the objective of the Israeli strike on Rafah. What happened last night, sadly, there is no moral equivalence between the two things. We went after 2 high-value Hamas targets, and it appears from initial reports that somehow a fire broke out and sadly took the lives of others. It is under investigation, and the IDF investigates every incident of this nature to see what actually happened. Shana from the Norwegian Refugee Council in Jerusalem expressed shock at the strike in Rafah. We are just as shocked as everyone seeing the images coming out of Gaza late last night and early this morning. This is a clear sign of why the implementation of the ICJ's order last week on halting military operations in Gaza, particularly in Rafah, is so necessary. It's truly unconscionable to think that, almost 8 months into this, we are still seeing images of women, children, and civilians being targeted and killed in such a way. The head of Gaza's largest United Nations agency, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, says the strikes in Rafah are a reminder that nowhere is safe in Gaza. I cannot comment on the casualties because we haven't been able to properly communicate with our team on the ground.
I saw images. They are deeply disturbing and horrifying. I think we have been clear more than once. There is no safe space in Gaza. Like, share and subscribe.